Are you a content creator? Are you a storyteller? Are you a producer? And I feel most likely you are an entrepreneur like me as well.
Developed a production company and we produce our own TV shows. And initially, it was to just create fun videos. And then as time went on, I didn't really have a choice. I didn't have any money to put in it. I'd sort of come out of content that's entertaining yet informational. So there's an education process there, but also I'd like it to be a bit inspirational so that people watch it and go, you know what, I'm going to go do something this weekend. A little bit different than what I was going to do before I watched that.
I hear it from a lot of entrepreneurs, which is fake it till make it. People doing it in the wrong way. Have like almost 14,000 startups in the region. Half of them, they have fun. Hold on. If you have any question to the guest, put it in the comment below and I will make sure he answer you by video or I bring him live to talk to you directly, guys. Continue the video. Paris, very happy to host you today in my podcast, Be Model podcast, where I'm looking forward to hear from you how you came up with different business models and shows the last 14 years, as I know, since I was one of your fans from the beginning. I was following you and seeing what you are doing, watching it, getting super excited about how you are doing it, because one day I wanted to do shows and it was one of my passion and dreams, but I didn't do it yet. Maybe after I hear you out today, we'll understand how the money behind this model, and then it will be easier for me.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me to your podcast and for following my journey for so long. And I'm glad that you're hitting it on this angle, because it's the angle that I spend most of my time thinking about, is the business, making the money, how we're expanding, how we're making things sustainable. And often people only see the shows and the fun side of it and all of that, and maybe don't have much consideration for what the actual business is. And so it's good to talk about it.
So Paris, let's talk about yourself first. Are you a content creator? Are you a storyteller? Are you a producer? And I feel most likely you are an entrepreneur like me as well. So who are you?
Well, probably all of the above. I started off my working career with the mindset of an entrepreneur. I always wanted to set up businesses, and I set up businesses in different fields before I did this. But when I decided to get into what I'm doing now, I thought of it as a business venture. And so I still consider myself an entrepreneur. I'm still trying to build my business. And so that's really the core of what I feel I am and what I do. And if in the future I go into another business line, it's because I still consider myself an entrepreneur and I'll set up something else. But I have developed a production company and we produce our own TV shows. And initially, it was to just create fun videos. And then as time went on, I tried to tell more of a story with those videos, because that's what keeps people entertained. So this sort of mindset of telling a story. And then as our team grew, and I've got two editors that work with me. I've got two different production teams who do different shows with me, and many different people. It's now a production role. And actually it's sort of organizing the whole production and the flow of work. So that's why I'd say all of the above.
Interesting. And I'm sure I haven't experienced your journey, so I'm sure it has been not an easy as we see you in your shows. So let's start with the guy in Dubai, which how I got to know you. It was a TV show on OSN. So can you tell me more about how you made it happen?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because just before we started the podcast, you mentioned about Emirates Airlines starting off with then $10 million investment. Well, I started off with 0 investment, and I was determined that I was going to grow it from nothing. I didn't really have a choice. I didn't have any money to put in it. I'd sort of come out of a business where it had failed and I lost a bit of money, so I had nothing to work with. And but I had, through the businesses I had gone through, I had landed on what I am passionate about. And I had discovered and come up with this idea of Guy in Dubai. And it had, maybe the idea had come from a bit of dissatisfaction with having tried and failed at a few businesses. And then having to rethink about things, thinking, okay, so what if I try and fail my whole life? Would I be happy? And I thought, well, if I try and fail at things that are giving me nothing back except the success if I have it, then I thought I won't be happy. So if I'm going to fail at the next thing, why don't I think about doing something where I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of the actual day-to-day and enjoy the journey of the business rather than just the pot of gold at the end if I succeed, which I may not. And when I get there, I may realize that not happy with that anyway. So I thought, if I try and work out the journey that I really want to be on, then it will be beneficial whether I succeed or don't. And so I had to think about, well, what would that be? How would I want my life to look if I could paint the picture myself? And I thought, well, I would love to have more time with family. I'm very adventurous. I wanted to climb big mountains and cross oceans and go on archaeological digs and all these types of things that I had this kind of thirst for. I like people. I wanted to, when I see the red carpet at the Oscars of a premiere or something, I wanted to be there. So I thought, okay, well, how do I make that my journey? And I thought, well, what about I make a TV show about a guy who goes and does all these things? And I lived in Dubai, and Dubai is a place where a lot of radical things could happen. I always remember seeing, guys fly along the Emirates A380 with jetpacks on for that commercial they did, and people jumping off the Burj Khalifa and crazy stuff that they used to promote Dubai. So I thought, well, maybe I could join in on that and I could promote Dubai. And if I'm promoting Dubai and promoting the things within Dubai, then it has some commercial value to someone. And if it's that kind of jaw-dropping adventure or stunt, it will be entertaining to someone else. So I could see that maybe this could be something where not only do I get something out of it, I get to have this journey, but also I can provide some value for other people, some commercial value for entities that need promotion, some entertainment value for people who consume content. I remember this when I had this idea in 2014. This was before this wave of mass consumption of content happened, but if I can credit myself for something, I did see that ahead of time. I saw how things were going with social media, with more and more video content being consumed, and people fixating on personalities. So with all those things that I saw, I kind of came up with this concept of Guy in Dubai, and the business model was very simple. I thought, if I can create some entertaining content that's entertaining yet informational, so there's an education process there, but also I'd like it to be a bit inspirational, so that people watch it and go, you know what, I'm going to go do something this weekend, a little bit different than what I was going to do before I watched that. So those were the 3 things I wanted people to get from it. But in order for the model to work, I realized that to fund a production, because remember, I started this with no money, but I had come to the conclusion, having done a few projects that were similar, that I could get the sponsorship money from sponsors up front, which then allowed me to have the production budget to do something of good quality. And if I had a production budget to do something of good quality, then a TV station would take it. And a TV station comes with an audience. They have the eyeballs. And that's what the sponsors wanted. So we had this circle, this triangle of audience, sponsorship,
Sponsors.
and content. And I knew that one can't happen without the other. But it was a bit of a chicken and egg scenario. So I had to first create a few pilot videos to give people the feeling of what we're trying to do. Because when I talked about it, people would not really understand and they would want to take it down a different path. So I did four videos, and then I thought, right, the first person I've got to impress is the broadcaster. And luckily we managed to get OSN on board at the end of 2017. And I started this idea at the start of 2017. So it was basically a year of trying to pull things together without earning any money. You know, we just had our 4 videos at that point. And I was trying to sell it to sponsors, but, you know, I didn't really have a platform confirmed. So it was kind of like sort of selling them the finished product, even though it wasn't finished. So selling them, look, we're doing this show that's going to go on to OSN. And, you know, trying to pull the 2 pieces together at the same time. But once we signed that deal, and then we tried to get sponsors on, then we could create the content. And basically, ever since then, all we've been doing is when we create the best content we can, we put that on a broadcaster, and then that allows us next time, because it's good quality and it's been broadcast, to get more sponsorship. And that sponsorship allows us to create a slightly better production. And that better production allows us to get onto more broadcasters or better watch time. And again, we just keep going around the triangle year by year, just going a little bit bigger each time.
So it's the mainly was the sponsorship. Okay. What I got today from you and your conversation, it's real venture, real startup, exactly how we have been done it. Even me or other people around me, where we start from nothing and we try to convince different shareholders or different partners to come in one journey, with exactly what you did. I wanted to highlight things that you started from zero. That means everyone can start from zero in different cases, and half or more entrepreneurs has started from that point, which means that we don't need investment to start. As you explained as well, that you need somehow to be the man who can go around all these potential partners, convince them step by step to come up all together. And this is almost impossible, to tell you the truth, how realistic we think we cannot do it. But I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they have been done it exactly like you. So this is also another point which people has to know, that it can be done by focusing on that and pushing themselves on that.
Just to elaborate further on that, because I think that has just spurred something in my mind that's very critical and key. When I launched on OSN, that was our first platform. We launched with, I think, about 18 other productions. They stopped that program for local productions, but of those productions, I don't think any of them continued. You see, for us, I always had this attitude of that I'm not going to give up, right? That I'm going to, keep knocking on doors. And it was always a case of, I've spoken to every broadcaster that exists at this point in time. Not all of them have liked my content at that point in time. Not all of them have been very receptive, but some have, and some have accepted it. But I keep going, keep bringing something new to them, keep trying, keep calling, it's always the person that was the contact at one broadcaster, let's say Discovery, 3 years ago, then moved on now, there's someone new. presents an opportunity. They may be hungry for what you're looking for. So you've got to keep like relentlessly working on the contacts in order to get content there, and we're constantly doing that.
Yeah, then consistency is one of the keys of success for sure. All entrepreneurs know that, and they die to do it. Very impressive. I hear real entrepreneur story is not just a producer who wanted to do a show. It's more about the journey, how you came up with different things. And I hear the story which I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs, which is fake it till make it. People doing it in the wrong way. They think that they need to go buy expensive things, be in different places just to fake it and get the money. But actually, you did the real fake it to make it concept, which is trying to put all parties together in the same time, same table, to bring them all together. And I understand you have this concept in a different presentation, so let me know about it.
Yeah, look, I think the concept of fake it till you make it, as you said, it's used in the wrong way, because you have to back it up. You have to make it, you know what I mean? Because effectively what I did, and really what I guess people do when we talk about fake it till you make it, is we're getting people to tie into our vision. And you can't do that unless you paint the final picture. This is what we're doing. Not this is what we're doing. If you give me the money, then I can do it. Or, after a couple of weeks, I might be able to sign a contract. It doesn't work like that. You have to paint the vision as if you're in it now. That's what people want to tie into. And then, but then you've got to back it up by actually making it happen. So, if you don't do that, then you're just faking it and faking it and faking it. And people are going to lose their faith in you. So to give you a more specific example, when I was talking with sponsors about the show that I was doing for OSN, I hadn't signed the deal with OSN, but I was in discussions with them, and I was asking them questions about exclusivity, about the format that they're looking for, when we might launch, what kind of viewership. So then when I was then talking to sponsors, I was able to relay that information so that they understood there was serious conversations going on there. Now, I had to pull the two together at the same time. And that's where the kind of the skill of, I guess, faking it till you make it is that, you can, you've got to pull everything together in parallel in order for it to happen. And I guess I'm always trying to do that, because I'm always presented, and I'm sure many entrepreneurs are, with the chicken and egg scenario, where I can't do one without the other, and I can't do the other without the one. So you have to pull them together at the same time. So you have to take a risk. And many times we do this where it's like, oh God, we can't, we've got to go ahead and create the content, but we don't have the sponsors. And we've got to pay for the content. At least by the end of the month, we're going to have to pay everybody. So how are we going to do it? Well, if we don't go ahead and create, we're not going to be able to get, you just have to, you have to do both at the same time and have a bit of faith that it's going to pull together. And I'm doing this all the time. I'm still doing it now. Just in our last season of Guy in Dubai, it was like, right, we've signed a deal with a TV station. We don't have the sponsors, but we have to film. I was like, well, if we just film without the sponsors, we'll be at a loss. But we have to just get on with it and have faith that we're going to pull everything together. And we did, and we made quite good money from it. So it's you've always got to have a bit of belief in yourself, and you just got to take a little bit of a jump.
You got lucky by doing it, but actually it's not luck. It's the way how you are doing it bring you people and opportunity in the right time.
Yeah.
Very clear now, Guy in Dubai is a venture where you brought your team, the TV channel to present it, and the customers who is paying, which are, in your case, it's a sponsorship model. How did you find your customers? How did you decide that this type of customers is for your product?
It's a bit of a trial and error. process. You start off with what you think would work. I always base things on if it was something that I like and I would want to watch, then I know there's someone else who would want to watch it as well. So, and I think that's the case with all kind of product design. If you can see that it's something you would use, that's a really good first step. When you're creating things that you wouldn't use, but you believe there's a market for other people, it can work, but it's much more difficult because you have to really understand those other people, and some people can do that. But I always start with me, and I've got my team as well, and a lot of them share the same interests in terms of like what we like. So they get into it too, and they develop other parts of the shows, so that it's now not just something that I know that I'd like, but I know that it's something that we'd all like. So
they believe in it.
Yeah, so that's the first step. I mean, and you can never know whether that's going to be something that would be applied to a niche market or the mass market. But at least you know that people would be interested in this.
And the customers, which the sponsors?
The sponsors, well, so for them, it's really about trying to sell it to them, because I think it was Steve Jobs that said, like, his saying, if I'm not mistaken, was they don't know what they want until we've made it for them, until we've, because he was talking about creating things that they hadn't seen before, right? We sometimes think of it like that with sponsors, because they have a particular agenda and way of doing things, and you come in with something that's a bit different, something that's not what they usually do. And you have to be able to get them to understand and see the vision of how this can work. So you're selling them something that they didn't know they wanted, but now they're like, oh, okay, well, that's not in our budget, but that's quite cool, so we could do that. If it is what they do day in, day out, and this is, common business for them, then it's quite an easy sell, because they're already in this business and they're like, oh, brilliant, give me that, So they're looking for it. So that's always easy. But generally we find that most of the time we're trying to get people to see how this would work. And that's, that's the skill of communication.
And who is your customer? Who is your customer?
What, in terms of sponsors?
Yeah.
So over the years we've had Land Rover was one of the big ones. Tag Heuer, watch company, were a big one. Many clothing companies, Columbia Clothing. We had Gant. We've had lots of activity providers and tourism boards. So for our travel show, we've had the Polish Tourism Board, the Royal Commission of AVOD, the Irish Tourism Board. I was just in Malta now, where I met with the Malta Tourism Board to do an episode there. So that's our travel show, which is called Guy in the Sky. It's like a similar show, but slightly different angle. So yeah, we can bring in many different brands. What becomes difficult is when it's not something that fits, obviously. So tourism boards is easy because we're coming to promote their country. With a company like Land Rover, it's easy because we could build in these really cool, adventurous shots in the sceneries we're in, and it made the car look cool, it made our show look cool, fits perfectly. Question is what do you do when somebody like Fairy Liquid comes along and says, we want to give you a lot of money? How do you promote Fairy Liquid in your show?
You need to be creative.
You can either be really creative, but at some point you have to go, you know what, we can't take that. We can't do it, because we do find ourselves bending too far. And unfortunately, the companies with the big money are things like consumer products, domestic products, things like this, and they'll spend good money on advertising, things like shampoo brands. But it doesn't work with our show, and our show's an outdoor adventure show, and when we're bending too far to try and make it work, it's clear and it's obvious, and then the viewer doesn't like it. So, and when we've created it, we kind of like, oh God, this wasn't what, this is not looking good. So we try not to do that. We have to have a bit of integrity. But when we started out and we had less options and money, we did do things that were a bit like, oh God, I wish we hadn't done that sponsorship deal, but it got us the money. The video was okay, but you could see it was a real commercial push. So now we sort of identified the things that work naturally the best in a way that looks good for them and looks good for the show, and we try and, as much as we can to work with those.
Interesting. So you got all partners together to be able to run your show. How did you verify that this is the way you done it? How did you verify your business model is working in the right way?
Well, it all started off in a very small way. So when you are able to broadcast a show and get a small sponsor, someone who paid a little bit of money, and finish the video and broadcast it, and you close that loop, that triangle that I said. And we first of all did it with, I remember our first sponsor was 5,000 dirhams, and we were getting about 2,500 dirhams as a license fee per episode. So let's say that's 7,500 dirhams we made on one episode. Then it's like, okay, we've closed the loop. Now if you have a proof of concept, even though it was small, even though it wasn't quite as much money as you would need in order to do what you want, you can keep doing that now. Now you can get more sponsors, and you can build the amount that you're earning more and more and more. So as soon as you've got a proof of concept, you only need one proof of concept, right? Once you've managed to do it. Now, if you've tried relentlessly for years and still don't have a proof of concept, then probably you're in the wrong thing. It's not working, right? But if you're able to get a proof of concept, and you have to, really be hardcore about making that happen, then it's just a case of scaling up, doing it many, many times. And so like I said, we 5,000 dirhams, and we're getting a license fee of, 2.5. Now a few years later, each video we're getting sponsorship of like $70,000 to $120,000. So like, talking 250 to 300,000 dirhams plus license fees of, oh wow, God, we get them from many different broadcasters now. So probably the total per episode would be like, well, it's hard for me to say, maybe something like another $50,000, so another 190,000 dirhams. So basically it's scaled up, and this is how life works. Any business, right? Any business, as you start to create more credibility for yourself, have more proof of concept, fortify your relationships, you start to be able to just go from one to up to bigger, slightly bigger, right? So now at some point, people get a break and they might jump a few steps in the ladder, and people then see it as an overnight success. But I don't think it ever is. It's always 10 years of hard work trying to climb the ladder at incremental amounts, and then you get a break, which jumps you up 2 or 3 steps in the ladder. So I wouldn't say we've ever had that big break just yet, but we're now in a situation where we've got our footing now solidly in the ground, that if those opportunities came, we could actually fully capitalize on them.
As a TV show, your proof of concept was to get the first customer, or close the loop of success. Did you need another proof of concept after that? Or in your case, it was one proof of concept and it's done?
Well, we've sort of moved into different business lines. So that was our proof of concept for our show Guy in Dubai. Then we decided that we wanted to do a travel show and that we had to be able to pitch it to tourism boards. And once we got the proof of concept of that, then we know, right, that's now a business model that can work. So we've done that. Then we did a challenge last year, which was slightly different because it was a big challenge that we wanted to create a documentary around, where I rode across the Pacific Ocean with 3 friends of mine. And the model was slightly different because we were going to raise the production cost through the sponsorship of the endeavor, of the challenge. And it worked. We didn't raise 100% of the money that we needed, but we probably raised 80 or 90%, which means we know that next time round we can use that model and it works. So we've done that. And then, you know, in completely different line of business from the TV shows, we've now started distributing TV shows. And we knew that we could distribute our own shows because we did that. So in a way, that was a proof of concept, a proof of product. But then being able to offer that service to someone else is slightly different. So we've now done that, and we're now working with other people's TV shows, acquiring the rights to then distribute those on other platforms. And this was a sort of big shift that's happened this year in terms of how we look at ourselves as a business, because until recently, our business has been focused around TV shows that quite often I was the host of, I was the producer of, so I was involved in every way. If you took me out of the equation, it wouldn't have continued. So a business, for it to have any value to anyone else, if you ever want to sell your business, or, you know, if it's to have any value, it needs to be able to have ongoing revenues. And the great thing about TV distribution is once we've distributed to platforms, we just gain royalties continuously. So now if I was to sell that business, the person buying it would continue to have those income streams. So effectively, the way that I'm looking at the business now is a large part of it is dependent on me and my business partner, but me as the face of the shows. So how do we grow the business without me having to be involved in everything all the time, so that they are units that are independently operating? And if they're able to do that, then we're able to build long-term business value and make it actually valuable as a company.
So, Paris, as I understand from you now, that you created another business model, which is the distribution. And I think you came up with another business model and purpose of a growth. So can you tell me about if you had any challenges in the first business model to come up with the second one, and why the second one?
Yeah, so we've recently moved into distributing TV shows that are not owned by us. So we acquire the rights and then distribute them on the platforms that we've been working with and form relationships with. We had gone through that process ourselves. So we had done it for our own shows and then realized that this is a service that we could offer other people. What I had realized is, whilst we had increased our revenue year on year, we hadn't increased our business value, because nobody wanted to buy a business that, when you pay the founder of the business for the business, that when he leaves, now there's no value in the business because I was the host of the shows, I was the producer of the shows, I was also highly involved in most of the sponsorship for the shows as well, getting those. So we weren't operating as an independent unit, so it had no business value. So we've been looking at how do we now move into things that increase our value as a business. And maybe we'll sell it, maybe we won't. That's not necessarily the point. It's just about expanding in a way that it doesn't become so dependent on one person or me and my business partner. Because if something ever was to happen to me, then there's other people who are employed in the business whose livelihoods are based on that, you know. So the distribution business is great because we acquire rights to shows and then we license it to broadcasters and get money coming in every quarter until they decide they don't want the show anymore. So it has an ongoing revenue stream, and that means that it builds value in the business. So we did this for two reasons. It's one, to increase the value in the business, two, to reduce the risk, because there was a lot of risk in so much of the business being determined by myself. So now, if something were to happen to me, God forbid, or even maybe it was even that I lost my motivation, that the business could continue and that the people involved in the business could continue to work on things, that we'd have other shows with other hosts, other producers. We'd have a line of business in terms of distribution, which had nothing to do necessarily with me, so that I could be part of making it good, but that I'm not the significant piece, so that other people can continue those lines of work.
Very interesting. What about the competition? Do you have a competition in such a type of market?
Yeah, look, I suppose anybody in my space is competition, whether they're social media content creators, Steven Spielberg creating big movies. They're all competing in the space. But I think the way to look at competition, there's so much more advantage in collaboration and seeing them as people that you can work with and learn from, than it is to see them as competition. Because if they are doing something really great, then you can learn from that. But more often than not, there are ways that you can fill each other's missing pieces to do something even better. So generally, I don't look at competition as a negative thing, because I think there's enough space for everybody, and some competitors actually break the frontiers of new markets, which then opens it up for everybody else. So, for example, there's sort of a new wave of videos coming out. You may not have seen them just yet because they're not so big here, which are called microdramas. So they're 2-minute videos shot in portrait, so people watch them on their phone. They're on platforms that you wouldn't typically be familiar with, not social media platforms as such, although I think TikTok is being used in some way. And they're dramas a bit like what we watch on TV, but short versions, love stories and things like this.
I'm aware about them.
Okay.
I did check this,
Yeah.
which is very interesting. This is one of the futures of the content, actually.
There we go. And this has been pioneered by the Chinese.
Oh.
So the Chinese have kind of discovered that this market for TV drama shortened into social media style content, but still filmed in decent quality, has a market, and you can spend $50,000 to $70,000 to produce that over a 5-day period, and they're making millions of dollars in distributing those. So they've done the proof of concept for the market now. They've proven, and now there's an opportunity there for people like myself and other people in the content space to do something there, and maybe they can bring new skills to it. So something that can improve what's already been done in the microdrama space. So competition, I don't necessarily look at it as a negative thing. The way I see it is, my world is quite small, and I only need to have a few good pieces of business, right? And I've got to stay, focused on my world. And there's enough for everybody. But there's a lot you can gain from competitors.
Interesting. So for your show, it's clear that you came up with additional business models. You didn't change anything. You didn't have a problem of changing business model, but because you had a verification and proof of concept. And I understand now that you have another business model, which is the premium content model. So can you tell me about it more?
Yeah, well, I guess it's just maybe the angle we focus on, rather than necessarily a different business model. It's just like the way that we have decided to target our business in terms of content creation. Because when it comes to making videos, you're a social media blogger, is effectively doing the same thing as Steven Spielberg. You know, Steven Spielberg is telling a story in order to captivate an audience, right? And a social media blogger is doing exactly the same thing. But the difference in the quality and the budget and the orchestration is vastly different. And the difference in the money you can make is also vastly different. And I think people are being led into thinking that doing things in an amateur way has more business potential for them. Now, it may have been good for the first wave of YouTubers who are now earning quite a lot of money. But now it's very difficult to reach that level. But more importantly, the way that we looked at it was, if we were to go down the road of doing, let's say, YouTube or social media as our outlet for telling stories, in order to be successful, we would have to create content every day, or at least very, very regularly. And we would have to do it not having the budget up front, but having the budget maybe later, you know, when money comes later. So you've got to invest time and effort in putting in videos that are going out every day, probably with no return for the first couple of years. And then, you know, and then maybe you start making some money, but it's, again, after you've posted the videos, not before. So then the ability to do anything really, really cool in terms of your production is limited, because you want the money up front, and you want a decent sized budget before you start filming, so that you can create something of great quality. And this is what I said about, you know, the triangle. You know, every time you create something of better quality, you've got better chance with great broadcasters. And if you've got better chance with great broadcasters, you're going to bring more sponsorship money. So it's this way of doing it. But with YouTube and social media, it doesn't really work that way. It's just, you got to put out a lot of content constantly, and then it's going to build over a long period of time, if it does, because sometimes it doesn't. I know people have been putting out things for, you know, consistently every day for 5-7 years and haven't, you know, made money from it, or even built a huge following. So that, I didn't like the idea of working on small budgets and keep doing it until that point in time where money was coming in. I wanted to go in and be able to do something of decent value from the start. And I always had these ideas in my head of doing, you know, I mentioned about the guys who fly jetpacks in Dubai, you know, I wanted to do something like that. And that's going to get any money, you know, it's going to need budget. So whilst the cost is also high, where in social media the cost can be quite low. That's the benefit, is that you can get going on, you know, 2 cameras on tripods and do it cheaply, right? But the cost of doing a big orchestration like our travel show, I mentioned a little bit earlier about the kind of money that we can bring in from tourism boards, but a lot of that, almost all of it, goes to cost, to production cost. But what that's doing is it's just increasing the value around the triangle again. You know what I mean? So we're building. We have to make sure we take a little bit of profit from it each time. But when you create content that is of high production value, that has been pre-produced, a story narrative has really been developed, very good editing, then you are creating something that has pull power for platforms. And then they want to license it, and they want to license it exclusively because they want that production to be able to pull people in. So Netflix will know that if they own a great piece of content, then people have to watch it on their platform, and then so they're going to have to subscribe, or they're going to have to, or they'll have reason to stay subscribed because there's another great thing to watch. So it has this sort of magnetic ability to draw subscribers to platforms, and that's only done by good quality content. And getting into that space has a lot of commercial reward.
Interesting. Since you are a producer in the first place, how did you learn how to manage your revenue, your cost, P&L? It's a little bit difficult for any entrepreneurs.
Yeah, well, look, I've got a business partner who came on fairly early on. I think I'd been running it for about 2 years. And he invested a bit of money, but more importantly, it was a partnership where he was joining in the journey, and he has skills that I don't have, and he has a good commercial discipline. And now it's great because it's simple. If I have an idea and I think it's great and he doesn't, it doesn't get done. If he has an idea and he thinks it's great and I don't, it doesn't get done. It only gets done if it's both agree on it, it's checked both boxes. Because if there's something that one of us doesn't see as potential, then it's clearly not that good an opportunity. But more importantly, because he sees things differently to the way that I do, and vice versa, I know I need to really sell it to him and pitch it to him to get him on board. So sometimes he said, look, Paris, I don't think this has got potential, but I still see it. I'm like, no, it's good. Yeah,
it's harder to sell it to your co-founder or partner than your potential customer, because
yeah.
you know that will accept, but your partner somehow...
Exactly. So if I can't sell it to him, then how am I going to sell it to someone else? So it's good because now we've got, two different minds on it. But he has a lot of discipline when it comes to commercials. I have ideas.
Creative.
Right. So let's say I'm the idea guy. He's the structure guy. Yeah. Right. And the combination of those is very good, and that's why I like working with him. And we knew each other a long time before that as well. And, without his structure, I'll run off doing every idea under the sun, spending my time and energy on lots of different things and not actually making profit from them. And he can always, be disciplined and structuring things in the right way. And of course, everybody always wants to be paid as much as they can, and so they'll always ask. And I'm a nice guy, and I always see that they should be paid double what I can pay them. I always want to pay them as much as I can, but then I would never make any money. So, and that's how it was for a long period of time. So then he's able to say, no, look, we need to limit this. They've got to do a few more productions before we can give them a raise, and so that it works commercially. I've said the word discipline a few times. It is a discipline. It's very much like going to the gym every day and eating the right food is not to get too indulgent on things, I always listen to him when it comes to that, because that's why we work together, is because he is very, very sharp on that. And quite often, some people that we work with don't like to deal with him because they know I'm the nice guy. And I say yes, but I always say, look, those decisions go to him because he makes decisions based on numbers, on commercial viability, and he would structure it the right way. But then sometimes I will say, look, this person has, really added a lot of value. I really think we've got to give them more than what we offer to pay them. We've got to give them a tip. And he'll agree when I have to play the human element,
Absolutely.
But it's good because it's
good balance.
Yeah, it's about having the balance, exactly, as you said.
Actually, you highlighted a very gap in the market with the startups, that we have like almost 14,000 startups in the region. Half of them, they have fund. And imagine a lot of them, more than 80%, they are mono founder or mono co-founder. They don't have a co-founder with them to take part of the journey and support. And actually that's what we are doing now in a venture builder, where we partner with ventures and act as a co-founder to to shortcut the journey and help them to do the right things without investing a lot of money on testing it. Because as an entrepreneur, 18 years, I have been spending more money, testing more because I was alone, and I didn't have a senior co-founder to support and guide me. And as I see, and you as well in your venture, that you needed a business person, which already added a huge value to you. And not only that, he did help also in the decision making, maybe saving you from one of the troubles which you might had.
Yeah, look, I've been involved in a couple of businesses before, and the first two businesses that I was involved in failed because of partnership problems and issues. The third one didn't fail for that reason. It failed for a different reason, but it was successful in terms of our partnership. And I'd say the success of this relationship, this business, has been due to the partnership relationship. It's very difficult to do well at the things at the bottom if the things at the top are not working out. And you know, they say it's like a marriage. You've got to be able to see eye to eye, compromise with each other, communicate with each other, full transparency. You know, I would, you know, you just got to be transparent about everything, because otherwise, if there's even the feeling that maybe there's something going on that you don't know about, it will ruin things. And you know, I remember it was actually my previous business. My business partner had been trying to call me in the morning and I hadn't picked up the phone, and finally gets hold of me after lunch, and then he calls me, I was trying to call you earlier, you're at a meeting. I was like, no, I went out last night and it's just a bit of a heavy one. I had to work from home this morning. You know, I had to tell him the truth, because if I'm not transparent and completely open, then the you know, the same in a marriage. You have to be transparent even when you're not necessarily done the right thing. You just have to say, yeah, you know, I was an idiot. You know, so those things are very important. And you know, aside from the actual ability to work together, it's about sort of being on the journey together, and you have to be able to see yourself still working with that person maybe 20 years, 30 years down the line. And so, you know, we glad to say that, you know, I've been working with Rohit for the last 5 years, and it's been a success. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very good. So, as I understand from you, you have three business models: the premium content, where you sell it to channels; the sponsorship, who come and they pay the bills to sponsor your show, and that will help you to produce the shows; and the third model is the distribution, where you can distribute it to different channels. Now, what do you think is the future of this model? The future when someone like you, coming after 10 years, you want to start doing a show, what do you think, how he will generate the income? Do you think there is something moving and changing the model?
Absolutely. I think the space of content and how to monetize it and how it's distributed is changing a lot. It has changed a lot in the last 15 years, and it will change more. I mentioned, you know, micro dramas are starting to become a thing. You know, that's something new pretty much this year. I think you always have to be looking for the next door opening, so that you can, you know, give it a go and see how it works for you. So sometimes those new mediums, whether it's a new way to monetize content or a new way to distribute it, or a new trend that people are now consuming, you know, that they like to watch, sometimes that will fit in with what you're doing. So you don't have to make too much of a change in order to do it. You know, you'll be like, oh, this is perfect for what we do. Sometimes you have to change things a little bit because it's not what you're used to doing, but it could be a good opportunity. So you have to make a call about things like that, about whether it's changing things too much from what your core skills are, your core competencies are, or whether it's something that actually you can leverage off. We're always trying to look at things that we can, as much as possible, leverage off of our strengths. Because we've realized that when we've gone into things that are not our strengths, are not things that we're good at, we've had unhappy customers because other people can do it better. So we've realized we have a certain skill set. We should stick to that, leverage it as much as possible, try and get as many clients in that space. Maybe look at some things that are similar to it, but not too different, but not go into something completely unrelated where we can't compete because we're not as good as other people in that space. So just to give you an idea, you know, all of our TV shows are focused around action, adventure, tourism, adventure tourism, that type of thing. And so we've looked at how we can do those types of videos specifically for tourism boards that might look to have tourism content that we could produce, which isn't our show, but for them. That would be leveraging off of our skills to film those, our knowledge of locations, our ability to produce those types of things, and the guys that we have working with us and their skills. We once did a video in COVID to help a cleaning company do something around sanitization, completely unrelated to what we do. We did the best job we could, but another company could have done it just as well, and there would have been a few companies who could have done it better. So we can't compete in that. But in our space, other people can't compete so well with us. So you know, that gives you an idea. We try and stick within our ballpark of what we're good at.
So we discussed right now about one of the new ideas coming live to present content, and I think changing your business model is depending on the platform. If you are getting new models, new way of presenting stories online, then your business model is reflecting as well and changing. So can you tell me about it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some of the ways that our internal business model will change will be related to the opportunities that are presented to us, which in the content space is changing very quickly as platforms are changing, the types of content that people are watching. There's new trends, like we mentioned the micro dramas earlier. Micro dramas is a new trend that's now become very popular for people to watch, but it's due to the platforms that have been created for them. And then that poses a new opportunity for a production company like us and other ones. So when those doors open, we have to sort of see, well, is that something that we can capitalize on? And, you know, we're always looking to use where we have strengths and then maybe expand it a little bit, but not change our whole business model just because there's an opportunity. So, for example, with micro dramas, we don't produce at this point in time any scripted drama productions. So that's quite different for us. So if we were to do something like that, we would need someone else with skills in those areas. So maybe a co-production or something. But where we do have skills is in you know, the filming, editing, location scouting here in the Middle East. So if it was something that could leverage off of what we have, especially if there was an adventurous twist to it, then we could. Or maybe what we'll find is the micro drama trend and the platforms for those will start applying them to other genres of video. And it might be that actually the platforms are successful not just in dramas, but also in short form documentaries, or you know, things that are more suited to what we do. And then that poses an opportunity. So So I wouldn't say our business model is changing. We don't want to change our business model because of an opportunity, but we have to see how we can leverage our business model for an opportunity. And new opportunities are opening up all the time due to the way that technology is transforming.
I have last question about is your business model in the future can apply on a subscription model where you get subscription fee, everyone subscribe to a platform and watch your show, or maybe we call it also customer acquisition. That means your show will bring in new users to the platform and they subscribe because of your show, and then you take cut of your shows, and also maybe you can make. How about you make a revenue from the view itself? So if there is 1,000 views or watch your show, then they start paying you on the view. What about those models? Is that something can come in the future and make money from it?
Well, actually, we make money from all of those now, from all of those different platforms. So when we talk about making money from views, it's usually because they're selling advertising. So that's what we call an advertising video on demand, or AVOD. So we're on a couple of AVOD platforms. We're on one called Tubi TV, which is an American AVOD platform, and it's free to view, but there's adverts on it. Then we've got subscription video on demand, or SVOD platforms, which are more like Netflix and Amazon Prime. We're currently on Amazon Prime. We're on a couple of other ones where it's still worked out based on viewership, but instead of the money originating from advertising, the money's originated from the pool of subscription revenue. So those are all available in different ways, and we're on a few different ones. And then we sometimes just get paid a license fee, where they'll just say, right, 10 videos, here's X amount of money, and then we don't make anything after that, but they've got it for 6 months, a year. That's what we do with the airlines. So we're on Emirates Airlines and Fly Dubai, and we're on 10 different airlines. So they'll just pay us a fixed license fee per episode. And often that's good, because at least you know what you're getting paid,
Done. Thank you so much, Paris, for all this information. Hopefully the audience can benefit from it, apply it on different businesses, because it's, as we see, you have been done it. A lot of ventures, they done it like you, and that means it's a business model itself where people can do it.
Brilliant, thank you. It's been